Happy Monday, Rebel Nation. Welcome back to the Rebel's Edge. On today's episode, smart money bets on a DJT win in November keep piling up. Spirit Airlines soars as they reach an extension of their credit facility, but are the skies really clear for the yellow Tweety bird? And hello, OKLO, the nuclear party keeps going, with this name in the SMR, small nuclear reactor space or modular reactor space, continuing. Stocks up 96% this month alone. We'll cover all those stories and more on today's Rebel's Edge.
The one and only Marc LoPresti. Great to have you here, Marc. That's Marc, by the way, folks, not me. If I pull off the hat, well, then you'd know, you can tell the difference. But you might be able to tell the difference by this too, Marc.
That is true. And I'm clean shaven in honor of being on the show with you today, in honor of the Spirit Airlines success, and just feeling good. It's going to be a good show, folks. We have so much to cover. And by the way, John, let's not forget at the end, we got a little bit of shameless publicity that we always need to cover with some big events coming up that our Rebel Nation has got to know about. But John, let's jump into the macro minute.
Let's dive into macro minute, folks. My side of it is going to be the People's Bank of China. Their decision to cut key leading, lending rates is one of the things that I think is a macro big news, because we've been waiting for them to come up with something else in China, and now they just have. We'll see whether their 25 basis point cut can move the needle, Marc.
Traders don't seem to think so, John. Markets reacting negatively. When I saw that news in the overnight, I thought maybe it was a good thing. And our favorite Chinese ETFs actually ticked up briefly in the pre, but then obviously traders deciding not good news. Look, for me on the macro minute side, as I teased in the cold open, hedge funds and other institutions, if you thought it was a big deal last week, man, it certainly seems to continue. I'm talking, of course, about large bets that are clearly indicative of a lean towards a Trump win. This is not politics, folks. I'm just telling you what we're hearing from the trading desks, the prime brokerage desks, folks at Goldman Sachs, other places that execute these trades for hedge funds. Last week, hedge funds bought all kinds of technology stocks in droves. Okay, that's risk on, anticipating the potential for favorable pro-business policies from Donald Trump, and sold off, John, in addition to the largest bets against the yuan, the peso, and even the euro that we've seen in 7 years by size and leverage. They're also selling off heavily renewable energy, with the understanding that that is not going to be a sector that will see the continued type of buoyant subsidies that the current administration provided. So that's the macro minute.
Well, thank you for that, Marc. That and the cold opening were both great. So
thank you.
Bang. Folks, we have a sponsor for the Fantastic Futures segment, and it is Hard Assets Alliance. That's assets plural. What do they do? Well, let's say, for instance, folks, that you listen to Marc, Jon, and Pete, and you said, I should have a little bit of gold in my portfolio. Well, as we know, a lot of people go out to Costco and buy that, Marc, and that's fine. Costco's a great place. But if you want to buy and sell hard assets like gold, one of the best places to do it is where Marc and Pete and I do it, Hard Assets Alliance. There you see the best way to buy silver and gold, to invest in it. You don't even have to take delivery, folks. This can go into a Brinks vault for you. So if you, for instance, scan that QR code there, thank you very much, Jared, you would be able to see exactly how to invest with Hard Assets Alliance. And you could open an account there today. That's how fast you could open it. And since gold just keeps hitting record high after record high, and silver is up even more year to date than gold, well, maybe this should be something you consider. As always, Marc and I and Pete None of us really can pull the trigger on trades for you, but we can tell you if you're looking for a place that buys and sells, not just the numismatic, folks that you go in and they give you, I'll give you 12% less than the spot price. Not with Hard Assets Alliance. So check it out. Rather than just going out there and getting kind of bent over for your Cougarans or silver dollars or whatever it might be, check out Hard Assets Alliance. All right, Mark.
I hate getting bent over for my Krugerrands. That's a terrible, terrible feeling.
Krugerranding is what we've nicknamed that.
that was a paid endorsement, folks, just to keep the disclaimers going. But do check that out. They have a great platform. The physical storage, by the way, is one of the biggest components, things that people like. And what's remarkable to me, John, then we'll move into the stocks. We have a lot to cover today. Mm-hmm. By every indication, every analyst, and even the major commodities desks at the large institutions don't seem to think that the bull run in gold and silver is over.
No, neither do I.
It's unbelievable.
Yep. And it's a great diversification. Because a lot of you, when you hear us talking about uncertainty and the VIX, well, some of you are sophisticated enough that you could actually step in and buy some VIX futures or VIX calls or puts, whichever direction you want to bet on. But a lot of you want a hard asset like gold or silver, and that's why Hard Asset Alliance, actually it's Hard Assets, plural, Alliance exists. All right. Let's talk about gold and oil, Mark, because gold, of course, moving to the upside again because of geopolitical tensions, military actions between Israel and Hezbollah. Well, that's one of the main drivers right here, Mark. So that's why we're seeing a little lift in both those hard assets, gold and silver, as well as crude oil. How about you?
Yeah, same thing, John. Oil coming off Friday's low, up a little bit this morning. I still think that there's something not right about that whole supply demand picture with all of the unrest in the Middle East and other conflict theaters that involve oil producing countries. You would think that prices would be a little bit higher. I think we've got some artificial price control from OPEC and the like. We could see oil and gas, I think, continue to go higher as we get into the winter months. And John, let's kick it off, and I'm going to take the first one with
Go ahead.
With your permission.
Oh yeah, we love this one.
we do, folks, and I'll tell you, John and I, as we often do, about 3 weeks ago, we're looking for some interesting ideas, not only to share with the Rebel Nation, but for our own portfolio. And I saw JetBlue one day was soaring; it was up about 8%. We sort of looked into why. Looked into the Spirit Airlines story. This was the day before the Wall Street Journal printed the article indicating that they were exploring potential bankruptcy protection and reorganization. The stock tanked on that news. We looked a little deeper and put on a trade for ourselves. We bought the January call options, which gives us the right, of course, to buy Spirit Airlines stock at $1.50 a share. I believe that's a January 15 expiration, John. Because we looked at what happened in the last 4 major airline reorganizations, how the stocks performed, and made a judgment call that this was not a company that was going to be let go of by its creditors. And of course, the first deadline that was coming up on this one was the 21st of October, today, with the creditors that support their credit card processing facility. I mentioned it during Cocktail Hour Live, John, with our audience on Friday, that I thought there's no way that the creditors providing that facility to Spirit are going to let it die so they can't process all of their credit card transactions. It was going to get extended. Well, guess what, folks? Stock was at almost a 52-week low on Friday, $1.50, as we were reporting that on Cocktail Hour. And I indicated, man, this thing ain't going in the can. Sure enough, 2.5 hours later, after the close, it gets reported that, yes, in fact, they came to an arrangement with their creditors for their credit card facility so they can keep on flying, keep on trucking, keep on selling tickets. Now, look, they got hundreds of millions of dollars in senior secured notes expiring next year and the year after. The 2025 notes do need to get renegotiated. We think that they will, and this thing's going to be saved, if you'll excuse the pun. Stock's up Oh, 65% today. Not so bad. And our position, John, I'm not going to give dollar amounts, but I looked in one of our institutional accounts. Our trade on this one in those January calls is up 83% in 2.5 weeks. That ain't bad.
Bang. That is indeed. And I don't know if I could add anything to it, Mark. So I'm not going to belabor it, but I am going to say that, of course, many of you would get out there and say, well, at $1.80, let me buy a bunch of stock. You might have. And then you might have decided to punt it or get out of it when it fell to $1.50, like Mark said. But when you're buying a 60-cent option or a 55-cent option, which is what we were doing, you can hold on a lot longer, especially if you have a January time frame. And those options paying off bigly for both of us today. So bang. All right, Mark, let's dive into a bunch of unusual activity because Applovin, analysts over at Jefferies, say they love this one. It's basically mobile technology and app promotion. And take a look at the unusual activity in here, folks. Applovin, today, they're stepping back in and buying more calls up to the November 200 strike. Now, without belaboring it, we do not buy way out of the money calls. That doesn't mean you can. We're citing where the unusual activity was in November. We instead tend to follow the at the money trades and then start selling above that market. So that way you can hold on longer. You don't commit as much capital, and you've addressed a little bit of that time decay or theta. But this one, Mark, getting a very nice pop today and fresh meat as far as unusual activity.
Yeah, I like this company, John. It's one we've covered on this show and on television in the past. It's a data company. You know how much we love data, as much as it is a marketing business. But yeah, they've got some really neat proprietary technologies that enables advertisers, both large and small, to monetize their social media presence, to interact with their audience effectively. We like it. I'm still bullish on the name. I wouldn't chase it up right here. I might look to pick some up if you don't already on some pullbacks. But yeah, we're loving Applovin today, John, for sure. I agree with our friends over at Jefferies.
Yep. Well, Richard Handler, the head of Jefferies over there, a guy that Mark and I may or may not have had a couple drinks with from time to time over at Mastro's, where that crew tends to hang out.
Well, and in full disclosure, John, Jefferies is one of the largest institutional shareholders in Battlefin, the data business that I co-founded and that you're an investor and advisor to. So shout out to our friends over at Jefferies. We are in agreement with them on APP.
All right. How about VFC Corp? So JP Morgan placed the apparel and footwear company on a negative catalyst watch. VFC shares tanking to the downside on that downgrade, if you will, Mark. They were down as much as, let's see, it opened at $17.85. That was almost $2 lower than where it closed on Friday. And that was near the low of the day. It was $17.45 on the lows. It's still down over 6.5%. And yes, we had unusual activity in this one on the put side. Take a look. They bought the 1st of November, 1850 puts when the stock was at $19.90. Well, so as you might imagine, those puts are in the money now, and they were in the money by more than $1 earlier today. So another one of those cha-chings for unusual activity, Mark.
Yeah, I love it. I don't have much to add on this one, John, other than to say the footwear love story may be at its end. We covered it almost through this, all of the second and third quarter of this year, where we had name after name reporting earnings, where folks in that discretionary spending category were spending on their kicks, right? Whether it was on holdings or others. But that maybe, to me, John, this VPC downgrade may be an indication that that party is over.
Yeah, or at least for, a company like this that, they make Vans and they have Supreme and Kipling and all these things, but they also make all these backpacks, and it's a pretty diverse company, which is good in many ways. But when people aren't spending as much, and kind of watching their shekels, if you will, it's a tougher time for them. Anyway, let's talk about one that's not tough, and that's OKLO, Mark, because, like you said, it's almost doubled in a month. Kathy Woods has been scrambling in here buying more than $2 million worth. Peter Thiel in here as well. This is, of course, Sam Altman's OpenAI play for nuclear, Mark. So it has helped lift a whole bunch of boats in that nuclear space, including our friends over at Nano Nuclear, symbol NNE. But OKLO, strong, unusual activity, Mark, and paid off yet again. As you guys might recall, we had this one when it was in the single digits at $8. Those calls have since expired, but not these. Look at that, $11.55. They were buying the Nove 12.5s. Well, the shares spiking, through 20 today. And also those Nove 20 calls paying off, almost 10,000 of those purchased just last week, Mark.
And John, this is the very beginning of this story.
Yes.
I'm not saying you chase OKLO specifically at these levels, but this is the beginning of this story. Amazon, Google, Constellation Energy, Holtec, all announcing major investments, hundreds of billions of dollars of investments, including a $1.6 billion restart of 3 Mile Island. Now, that's hardly an SMR, but the nuclear power story is just beginning, folks. And we're going to keep covering it. And we're going to keep staying on top of names like OKLO, NNE, and others that are coming into the space. We also saw over $1 billion in venture money, John, in the past 2 weeks alone, going into some of the larger privately held names that are developing their own SMR, small modular reactor technology. You put one of these to containerized back of a tractor trailer, park it next to a school or a housing development, a multifamily, and a bit of uranium about that big can power it for 2 years. I mean, don't hold me to those scientific numbers precisely, but you get the idea. And it's not science fiction. This stuff is in commercial use currently. But folks, mark my words, this is the beginning of that story.
Yeah. And also, as Mark has said, folks, and Pete and I absolutely endorse it, when you're talking about data centers, you're talking about extreme draws and extreme pressure, if you will, on existing grid and the ability to produce energy through coal, through nat gas, through wind turbines, through solar, and of course, nuclear. And then many of these places that can't take interruptions really need on-site power generation. And this is one of the ways you do it. For a long time, people were betting on plug power and things like that. But this, like Mark said, can run for years on one single, if you will, one single application of that uranium in that secure facility. So I think it's going to be the future, Mark. I absolutely agree. This is just starting.
It is.
All right, folks. Let's talk. And by the way, if you want any of those services where we had that unusual activity, folks, I mean, if you're somebody that says, I wish I had Applovin, I wish I had VFC, I wish I had OKLO. Well, wish no more. Just sign up over at marketrebellion.com/get started. That's marketrebellion.com/get started. Our subscribers that love us, knock on wood, talk about all of these trades and how well they've done, including the cocktail hour, which we do on Fridays, where Mark talked about that Spirit Airlines trade again on Friday.
That's right.
All the more reason, folks, that you should be a subscriber.
That's all right. Let's get into a little bit of sports.
Yeah, let's do it. Even without Pete.
Even without Pete.
Points out that where is he today?
Tell me what's going on, John. Tell me what's happening with the Big Ten. They have 3 of the top 4 rankings at this point right now. 3 undefeated teams. What's your view on who's ultimately going to rise to the top of that crop?
Well, I do really like both Oregon and Georgia and Ohio State, even though I know, folks, that Ohio State lost at Oregon, basically when time ran out and the quarterback took a dive, but didn't get down quick enough. And thus, Oregon beat Ohio State. Do they deserve it? Of course they do. They won the game. But Ohio State was that close to beating them in Eugene, Oregon, where not very many teams beat Oregon up there, folks. That will result in another game later this year. But Oregon, number 1 in the nation, Georgia, number 2, after just taking Texas apart this weekend, Mark. Penn State, number 3. They are undefeated, as you said, 6-0. And then Ohio State comes in at number 4. So 3 of those top 4 spots are taken up by Big Ten teams. And, you could throw that Miami team in that's probably 6th or 7th. They could crack that top 4 or 5 pretty quickly because they are 7-0. And that team is getting better week after week, Mark. Yeah, there's a lot going on in college football that makes it very interesting for fans and bettors alike. Because,
right.
Again, that Georgia-Texas game, what a game. And it wasn't even a game for most of it, Mark. They just ran away from Texas. Georgia was ready for that one. All right. Pete wanted us to hit also the NFL's best quarterback. So, Mark, I have a feeling you know who this guy is. He's the quarterback for the Detroit Lions. Used to be out there with the Los Angeles Rams. But then, all of a sudden, Mr. Goff from the University of California, again, they barely lost to Miami in that game. The Golden Bears, my former Golden Bears alliances aside, Jared Goff, just incredible for the Lions right here, right, Mark?
There's no question about it. And look, this is very popular conversation, at any bar or restaurant on Sunday. If you're a Patrick Mahomes fan, the CJ Stroud fan, a Joe Burrow fan, Lamar Jackson, certainly a lot of talent this season in the QBs in the NFL. Question as to whether or not the coaches are using them to their highest and best use. That remains to be seen, but there was certainly no lack of football or baseball. I was surprised that Pete didn't touch at all on baseball with all of what went on here. I mean, holy cow, John. Friday and Saturday, the bars in New York City were, first of all, very warm. Summer, the sequel, still happening up here. So doors and windows open and people pouring out onto the streets. It actually felt like maybe the way New York was pre-COVID. But I'm surprised that we didn't get any baseball in there with all the action up here in the Northeast. But that's okay. Yeah,
well, we'll get to talk a lot of Yankees still, Mark, because the Yankees did clinch, and they're in there. And I think the Cleveland Guardians, I like to call them gladiators, almost made it. I mean, they gave the Yanks everything they could handle. But the Yankees just are, number 1, super talented. Number 2, stayed hot at the right time. To your point about temperatures, the team stayed hot, and just an incredible series. Enjoyed watching that one, Mark. And I think we'll be talking about the series tomorrow, I'm sure, and what it's shaping up to be, because this is going to be pretty special this year. All right. Well, Marc LoPresti, again, thank you, Mark. Great job as usual. We look forward to joining you again tomorrow, folks. We hope you have a great afternoon. And don't forget, we'd be remiss if we didn't say that the redo, Mark, of the Rebel Mastermind is going on down in Florida on the 19th of November, right?
That's right, John. We've rescheduled for November the 19th. We were originally supposed to do it on the 11th of October, but Milton had other plans. If you haven't secured a seat for that, please do. We do have some tickets left, and we would love to see you there, where we will be trading live, showing you how we put trades on, demonstrating our most popular strategies like unusual options activity, instant real estate cash flow, and things of that nature. And I got another one, John, that I want to mention. We're super excited about this. October 31st on Halloween at 4 p.m., the spooky Rebels election special, where we are going to tell you what the smart money, based on our unusual option activity, our heat seeker algorithm, and things of that nature. Again, this is not going to be a political show, but what the markets are indicating in terms of what the likely outcome will be, how to position your portfolio for both eventualities, and if there is, God forbid, uncertainty, how to protect yourself. We're going to be joined as well on that one by our friend and business partner, and that's why both John and I are wearing the colors today. You know, we didn't coordinate on that, John. That just kind of happened. But we are going to be joined on that Spooky Rebels election special. Can join us from 4 to 6 and then take the kids trick-or-treating. Don't worry about it. They can wait a little bit before loading up on candy and carbs. But Grant is going to be joining us. Grant, of course, was on stage at Coachella with Donald Trump just the weekend before last. Yep. And I think he may have some insights to share about what that candidate's policies might do to the markets. So this is one not to be missed. It's completely free. And producer Jared, please pop up the QR or the link for that one. And folks, we will see you both on our Halloween Spooky Election Special and our Rebel Mastermind on November the 19th. And John, as you said, in the meantime, we'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time on another episode of The Rebel's Edge.
Thanks.